Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radio Row at Super Bowl 56, Sports Philanthropy Network. This is Roy Kessel with Caleb Bradham, and we're very excited to have a special guest with us this afternoon, Diahann Billings-Burford from Rise. Diahann, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
It's been a long day. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It has been a long day, but I think the work that Sports Philanthropy Network and Rise does is so aligned. And we have such a real relationship that it's not that this isn't work, but it's good to come and talk to friends. Even if it's talking about some difficult things, it's a good way to spend my time. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We love the work that Rise has done. We followed Rise literally from our launch. This is our third anniversary as Sports Philanthropy Network, and we followed from the launch for us in Atlanta, and got to see the Rise booth and everything at the NFL Experience. We haven't had a chance to go and check.
I was about to say you have to check out this year's. We've made some adjustments, and I just went up, and it is amazing. So please come through.
We're very impressed by what we saw then, and followed Rise immediately, and so happy to be connected and working with you. I know today was a big day. You had a big event, so we want to hear and share more about that event.
Absolutely. We just had this wonderful event. We named it Representation Matters, and we believe that it is a pilot. It is something that we're going to do more of. We did it in partnership with the Pro Sports Assembly and with Black sports professionals, both the Southern California chapter and the national organization. And really what it was if we take a step back, Rise's mission is to educate and empower the sports community, right? To eliminate racism and to promote social justice. It is really one of our steps to empower folks. We have decided in 2022, we are really doubling down on the empowerment side. And so we have been hearing over the past 2 years, what's next? What do we do? Now that we all kind of agree on what the challenge is, what actions should we take? And so as folks have been asking those questions and we've been helping them to frame their answers, one of the things that has come up is diversity and inclusion in the sports space itself. And so that's what Representation Matters really targeted. We had some great leadership. We had Jason Wright from the Washington Commanders. We had Danita Johnson from DC United. And Max Siegel, CEO of USA Track and Field and the head of Rev Racing. That was the first panel. We had about 60 to 70 professionals, both mid-level and senior level in the room. I should back up and say the room was amazing. The Rams were wonderful. They actually gave us their Rams hospitality suite, Penthouse 56, downtown Los Angeles, beautiful setting. Something that, as you guys know, we're in this work, we're not a for-profit entity, and so we need those partnerships to really elevate our programming. And so it was a wonderful venue, wonderful people showed up. We started with that panel. We had a middle of the day, we took folks through Rise programming, right? Because we also want to help folks unpack what are the things that are proving to be obstacles to this inclusion. So we think our work helps people identify that. And then we ended the day with a second panel, Tara August from Warner Media, Sean Singletary from Scout, and Ann Sweeney from the Cardinals. And that second panel was more focused on, we wanted to make sure we took this opportunity to make sure folks understood the breadth of what it means to work in the sports industry, right? So you had someone who was PR and now they're in talent management at a media company. You have someone who is at a club and heads HR, but she had done HR other places. She hadn't always been in the sports industry. Sean is now at Scout and he's in sponsorships, but he had previously been at JP Morgan Chase in sponsorships. And so that second panel was more for our mid-level professionals. One of the things we were hearing is that often women and folks of color don't understand the different options that are even out there within this sports industry. And so we were answering that. So it was a great day. I'm so grateful to everyone that came out and helped us. But it was a lot, but we did it.
So Diahann, I have to ask you a question based on what you said. First of all, thank you I'm proud to say I signed that pledge.
Excellent.
And it means so much to me. So living in Milwaukee, being a single parent, having 8 kids. I guess my thing is we could talk for hours and hours and hours about the problems that exist for people of color, for women in sports, right? And we understand that a lot of these things are transferable skills. What I think we need to talk about a little bit more is the solution.
Absolutely.
So what are you guys doing at Rise to create impact?
Yeah, so I love it because we feel like representation matters was exactly that, Kayla. We're interested in solutions. It's not to say we don't think folks should talk about the problems, they should. But when we talk about that empowerment piece, it really is solutions. So it was part of let's bring these senior executives in the room with these diverse candidates. We had the RISE programming, so you get that actual time to get to know one another. A lot of what happens in hiring is who do you have relationships with? Who have you been exposed to, right? So in some ways, we were creating the solution to the challenges that folks had already, you know what I mean, identified. Because you're right, you can identify the challenge all day long, but then what are you going to do about it? And it was one of our solutions. So that time together to get to know people, that time to help diverse candidates. You know, I often talk about my board chair is Paul Tagliabue, and nothing really replaces a sponsor. Nothing replaces that ability to talk to leadership and to really get pearls of wisdom from them, and to so that you can, you know, it can inform your choices. And so in representation matters was solutions. It was let's give people that might not always have this exposure that exposure. Everybody in the room, most of them in the room said, I don't know when I'd ever get to speak to Jason Wright, the president of the Commanders, right? I don't know when I'd ever, it wasn't like they were high potential, but they weren't people that would ordinarily have access to him. They wouldn't have access to Danita, you know what I mean? And so we were creating solutions that, you know, to the challenge that had been identified. So.
And you brought Paul Tagliabue with you the last 2 years of Sports Philanthropy World Conference, and hearing his insight and the leadership he provided for the NFL.
Yeah.
A lot of what the NFL is today was built off of his leadership, and some of the challenges going on right now in the diversity area for the hiring for the NFL is exactly what you talked about with those relationships, right? So somebody like Jason Wright, who I got to know when he was at Northwestern.
Yep.
And, you know, when I was an NFL agent, he's been an amazing individual.
Amazing.
Since college. His leadership shined at that point, as well as his athletic ability and seeing the leadership of the Commanders.
Yeah. And
it's incredible.
And even with that, you know, I couldn't thank Jason, Danita, Max, all the panelists enough. They were so open and so honest. I think folks really engaged immediately because of that. What we focused on during the RISE programming was bias. And because even hearing them, to hear you talk about Jason, and he's great, he also was very open about dealing with bias. He said, he's run into a couple of situations where he does think folks don't necessarily think folks of color are going to be as adept at business decisions and finance, right? And so here's this brilliant person who's had to manage that, right? And managed against that. Exhibit A. So it was, they were phenomenal, but you hit the nail on the head as part about some of what the conversation was.
So I'm going to ask us to just back this up for 1 second, because we jumped in, I think, way too quickly because we're shoulder deep in the work. It occurred to me, people who are watching the live stream or listening to this later on, they might not know what RISE is or what you do. And we're talking about representation, and diversity, and Black and brown women in sport and the careers.
Yeah.
Back us up a little bit, Diane.
Yes.
Tell us about RISE.
Yes, thank you. You're right, because I'm so used to you guys. I just jumped into our conversation. So RISE is a not-for-profit. We love it. We're about 6 years old. I've been with the organization about the same time as your launch, right? I came in going into my 4th year. And our vision is bold. It's really aspirational. But we believe that we're creating a nation unified through sport, committed to racial equity and social justice. And we think that through sport, we've got the best chance of doing it. We don't think it's easy. I might not see it in my lifetime, but if we don't work for it, we certainly won't achieve it. All right, it's easier for us to maintain the status quo. And so our mission, the way we go about achieving that vision, is to educate and empower the sports community. And for us, that means the entire sports community. So we have multi-week programming with young people. An example of that is Rise with the Rams. The Rams sponsor multiple football teams from about 10 high schools now. We've been running it for 3 years, and every year more high schools want to get involved. They can't even do it in one setting anymore. We have to do different settings throughout the year. And they come together 10 times, Rise curriculum. Rams players have shown up and taken part. The organization has sometimes provided tickets as incentive. The coaches are now involved. In year one, the players did it. In the year two, the coaches were like, so they're using terms, and we need to know what those terms mean. So now we train the trainers and we train the young people. So we educate youth, young athletes, high school age, collegiate. We have a robust collegiate program. Everything we do is based on that same curriculum. We have 6 topics we think folks need to cover, and more, we have 6 skills that we think folks need to build for us to be able to be unified. And so our curriculum is built on that. And we might have 40 modules, but it all comes down to those 6 topics, those 6 skills. And so we do it with the collegiate programming, and then we also do quite a bit now, I would say in the last year or two, with the professional athletic world. So
you raised the issue earlier of bias, and one of the exercises comes to bias. And I find that really interesting because everybody has blind spots. We think we're not biased, and yet when you go and look, even about things where you think you're neutral, that bias exists. And I remember being at a Beyond Sport conference where Rise ran an exercise where we were revealing statements about different individuals.
So we did that today.
I'd love you to take everybody through a general description of that because I think it was so powerful.
Thank you. It is an activity called Trading Places. And, you know, Roy, I feel good. I feel like you got the key takeaway, and that was years ago. You're still embracing it. The truth is everyone has bias. And there are biases that we are aware we have, and there are biases that we are unaware we have. And sometimes we even have biases that go against what we say, and not because we mean to be liars, right? One person today gave a great example. He was born of a family that their first generation, he's first generation American born immigrant family. And he said he grew up and his parents were like, what you're not going to do is work at McDonald's. And so in his head, right, and what they were saying was, we want you to go to school. We want you to be educated. We don't want you to be a physical laborer. Here's a person, he says he's pretty progressive. He believes like in everyone has value, everyone has worth. One of the lines in this Trading Places in the character, the first thing is that the person works at McDonald's. And he said, I realized I ranked that person last because that was, even though he's, you know what I mean? He is open and he respects anybody that works anywhere. There's that bias, right, that he has on the inside. And so it's called Trading Places. And we think it's a great exercise for folks. It's really introspective. We tell people we're not collecting papers. We don't want to know what you put down. What we more want is for folks to think about, okay, what did I put down in this activity, and what biases have I identified, and how can I be more aware of them? You know, and maybe think about how they've shown up. I would say personally, I have a bias. I had to, when I've done this a couple of times, a real bias about education, right? Much of my early career was based on equality of educational opportunity. I had to check myself. I had to realize, like, literally, someone not having a college degree means they don't have a college degree. That's literally all it means. It could be any other things could be at play, but we have these biases and these stories that we build and things that we make from it. So we love the exercise because we think it forces folks to do that work.
So, Diahann, we have a lot going on between a big 50-year anniversary coming up for women and girls in sports, a Rooney rule that doesn't work, I live in Milwaukee. It's one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States. There's a lot of work to be done. You've given us some solutions. I want to ask you about your vision. Skip the solutions and let's get to the finish line. What does it look like?
Yeah. I think that the best part of our vision is that some of it we can see already. I just got to do Instagram Live. I have such faith in Generation Z. I know we come after them, but I have such faith in them. I'm raising two of them. They're not easy, but I kind of love them. I love their fire. And there's a young woman, Megan Skaggs. Megan is a college gymnast at the University of Florida. Very good. And she has a program that she runs called the Tiny Bow Project. And Megan has a following, young white woman, athlete in Florida. A lot of her following is white. And her focus in her Tiny Bow Project this week was allyship. And so we're on this Instagram Live. And we're talking about what does allyship mean? What does it look like? Why would we do it? I got to talk about one of Rise's skills that we seek to build is empathy, right? And how she really is this wonderful example. She talked about, I do this because I have teammates that look different than me, and I want them to have the same experience as me. And so, a long answer, but in some ways, Kayla, I get to see the vision, right? I know not getting to see it in its totality because we see the other side too. We see the side where we are talking about the head coach situation in the NFL, right? Rise is about to launch our critical conversation, and Chris Bullard, who is the GM at the Colts, refreshingly honest. About 2 years ago, he's sitting at the annual meeting. He said, Diahann, all the pictures of the GMs were up, and I think there was one black person. He was like, okay, something is really wrong. So I think I get to see the vision in some of our younger people, and I get to see that we could even get to the vision with some folks, I'm not going to call us older, but some folks my age, because I think there was a time we didn't even see it. You know what I mean? We didn't see it, and we certainly didn't verbalize it and acknowledge it, not folks in power. And so I think that's what the vision looks like. On that IG Live, one of the questions was, you have little girls that look up to Megan, and then they brought up Simone Biles. And I said, the best part is the vision is that all little girls and boys could look up to Simone and to Megan because they want to, you know what I mean? And they can see their skin color. They don't have to be colorblind. They can see it and still say, like, I just look up to that person,
Well, there's no doubt for anybody seeing this that Diahann just about brought me to tears because I have that vision. And Diahann, I want to say thank you, like as a mom with a gazillion kids. Thank you for the work you're doing. We all know that a bad check was written.
Yep.
And when you write a bad check,
it's going to come due.
It's going to come due.
It's going to come due.
And it came due a long time ago.
Yep.
It's time to pay it back with interest. I want to say on behalf of Sports Philanthropy Network, Roy and myself, thank you from my heart. Diahann, thank you for the work you're doing.
And thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Roy, will you close us out, please?
Thank you, Kayla. Diahann, again, we're excited to continue to work with Rise and expand and find more ways to collaborate. I think that the programming is so important. And as we launch chapters in different cities around the country, definitely incorporate Rise's programming and exercises, because there's nothing more powerful than when people actually go through it. You can talk
together
about it all day long.
Yep.
But until they sit down and do it and really give that honest assessment for themselves, it's just tough.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Let's see what next year's bring. We should be talking about something great we did together by the time we get to the next Super Bowl.
And we really hope so. To all of our viewers and listeners, we want to thank you for joining the Sports Philanthropy Network live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles. For Kayla Branham and myself, and for Diahann, thank you for joining us. Please remember to live generously. Thank you.
And risetowin.org.
Risetowin.org. Thank you, guys.